Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazadov's chess channel and welcome to our Basics in Chess series. So in this series we're following opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. Today we talk about some endgame strategies again. Today we'll talk about the king and pawn endgame. And the king and pawn endgame can be really a complex endgame, although you don't have so many pieces on the board. But sometimes we make really this huge blunders in endgames because we play on our feeling in chess. And the feeling in chess can be sometimes very tricky. We feel that we should make a move, but it's really the worst move because maybe we didn't calculate everything so well, and then we miss some winning chances. We make draws where we should win, or we maybe even lose where we should make a draw. So that's why in chess it's very important to calculate these endgames to see really every particular move. And that's why the title is Broaden Your Horizons in Chess, because I think sometimes we play simply too much on our feeling, not on simple calculation. So let's see now our first example. Pause the video and try to find now the winning continuation here for black. So it's not so easy maybe to see, but as I said, these are really complex endgames here with only king and pawns. And I think most of us, from our feeling, of course, would play the move c5. So but c5, you see, it seems, of course, it's a great move. We get our king to c5, then afterwards, after e takes f5, our king is very centralized. But basically, this move is a mistake because after d takes c5, we have now a problem. After king to c5, white can play a very tricky move, c3. So the main goal of white here is to create the so-called distant pass pawn. And then the king is always deflected to the a file. The king is then the black's king is too far away from the action. We'll take this pawn, but the king will go after this pawn. Then after the works, we can grab this pawn and again go maybe here after the g5 pawn. And it's of course a completely winning endgame here for white. So that's why it's this distant pass pawn in potential endgames is very important to realize. So that's why we should notice first our opponent's idea. His main idea is to play c3, deflect the pawn from the g file and create this distant pass pawn. So very tricky endgame. So as I said, I think most of us, if I would have played this endgame maybe with only 5-10 seconds on the clock, I would play probably immediately c5. It's simple as that. I would play on my feeling, but it's the worst move. The best move, and it's the winning move here for black, is to move king to c7. Because now let's see this plan. If white plays the move c3, we have the move king to b6. So you see how tricky the endgame can be sometimes. And after c takes b4, we can play king to b5. And now after potential a3, we can go after this pawn. And now suddenly it's the white king that's simply too far away from the action. If king to c3 happens, we'll simply take out this pawn, and now black has a completely winning endgame because white needs to step back here from the defense of the pawn. So let's see another example, possible continuation. If here after king to g5, king to c3 happens, again we'll play simply a king to a4, and again white needs to step back. But now you see we have now the opportunity to take one of these pawns. If white king protects this pawn, then we can go after this pawn, and again it's a winning game. If we go, if white goes here to b2, then we can grab this pawn and we will connect these two pass pawns, and it's of course again a completely winning endgame. So that's why you see c5. I'm sure most of us would have considered as the main move. Really, it seems so. After d takes c5, our king goes perfectly fine towards the center where basically the king should be. But there are these paradoxical things in chess endgames. The endgame can be really a paradoxical stage in chess. Some of our main rules are simply not applicable in endgames, so that's why you should really consider every particular move in endgame. So let's see now another example. Here is also an endgame. Pause the video and try to see now again the best continuation. Black is winning here, and try not to play on our feeling, because our feeling can be really messy in chess. So that's why it's very important to calculate everything and try to solve now this endgame puzzle. So okay, again probably our guts are saying us here we should play the move g3, but again the same idea. G3 is losing here, which is really incredible that g3 is losing, because what we hope probably for is after potential g3, h takes g3, then maybe f takes g3, here f takes g3, king to g3, and now we can grab this pawn because our king has occupied the third rank. But of course, white doesn't have to play this endgame like this. After h takes after g3, h takes g3 can be played, h takes g3, but now king to g2, and now if you try g takes f2, we will simply take out the pawn, and now suddenly black has several troubles because this king is moving simply towards this pawn. And although you can maybe here after king to e6 we can go after this pawn, but now after a6 we can grab this pawn, and it's now again a completely winning endgame here for white. So that's why you see the feeling, as I said, in chess can be really tricky. Here the best move is to move f3. So I'm not sure how many of us, let's imagine just a position in which we're playing maybe a blitz game and we have really not so much time to calculate everything. I think most of us would play the move g3. Here the correct move is, as I said, the move f3. Let's see now a possible continuation. The problem is now after king to g1 we can simply go with our king here towards the center, and now after king to f4 you see we'll simply push this king further, and now we can go into an opposition. Even if white goes here maybe to d1, we can still play king to d3, and again the same position applies. So here we can go into an opposition after king to c2, king to c4, and now it's again completely winning because we will simply go after the king. And even if now white manages to create this opposition, we'll go after this pawn, and again it's game over. So you see, the only way maybe that white can prolong this game after the move king to g1 and king to g5 is maybe to play the move h3, but here g takes h3 can happen, and now we can simply protect first our pawn. Then we're waiting white to step back from the attack, and now play king to f4. You see king to e4, we go simply after this pawn. And the problem is now that black has, of course, after the move king to g3, this extra tempo, this so-called Zugzwang motif with the move a6. Now again white needs to step back from the defense of this pawn, and now it's completely winning here for white. So as I said, I'm not sure how many of us would really play the move f3 in a blitz game. I think I would for sure play the move g3 because I would hope for to get the king, of course, on the third rank where I could attack the pawn on a3. Now you saw that after g3 it's simply losing here for black. So let's see now another example. Here is also one game in which, again, pause the video and try to find now the best continuation here for white. Okay, in the game, it was a game between Israel Horowitz against Anur Denker. Here Horowitz played a very bad move. He played move king to h7, and the problem is now, again, our feeling probably told us that king to h7 is perfectly fine because we're getting more aggressive, we're getting on the 7th rank, we're getting very active with our king. But the problem is now king to h7 can be met with a very tricky move which Horowitz's opponent didn't see. It's the move h5, sacrificing the pawn, because if you try g5, black will simply play king to f7, and the problem is you cannot play g6, then you will lose the game with king to f6. You have to step back. So here white has to really stay with the king here to h8, h7, and it's now a draw. So if you take g takes h5, it's again a drawish position because here black can go into an opposition with king to f7, and now it's again a drawish line because you cannot play h6. We'll simply take out, and now again create this opposition with this distant pass pawn. White will never be able to promote it to queen. So here maybe king to h8 can be played, and now king to f8, king to h7, king to f7. But in the game you see how the king and pawn endgame can be really tricky. Here now black made the mistake and went into an opposition, and we talked about this opposition in one of my endgame videos, that you should basically force the opposition. But now it's unfortunately for black a losing game because here king to h8, king to f8, and now g5, here g6. If you try here h takes g5, we will simply play here h takes g5, and now we're the one that are creating the opposition here black needs to step back again, maybe something like this, but now we can go after this pawn, then maybe we can take out this pawn and now simply promote our d pawn. So in the game, after the move g5, g6 was played. Now we have king to h7, we have h takes g5, h takes g5, king to f7, and now king to h6. Now we have reached again this position in which black needs to step back from the defense of the pawn, and now we can go after this pawn again, and it's of course a completely winning endgame here for white. So you see, this is really a master level game. First, white makes the endgame mistake, doesn't make the correct move, plays the move king to h7. Let's go back here. He plays move king to h7, which is suddenly a drawer's position after potential h5 move. So that's why, as I said, we should consider every move, even if that move maybe seems strange to us. But first, we should calculate it, see if this move can make something to us, can maybe make a drawish game where we're feeling maybe that we're on the losing side, because here king to h7 in a potential maybe middle game with maybe the knights on the board still, maybe with some bishops on the board, maybe this move king to h7 would be perfectly fine. But as I said, the endgame has really its own rules. That's why the endgame is, I think, one of the most paradoxical stages in the chess game. Here you see many many basic principles were broken, but the basic by breaking the principles, you basically can win some really this paradoxical endgame. So okay, I hope that you realize these ideas, and I hope that you enjoy this video. These are really important things for you to realize in potential endgames. If you want to see more of opening principles, middle game strategies, and endgame strategies, check out my Basics in Chess series videos, in which I've created more than 160 videos, in which I try to show you some important things in chess. And if you want to see maybe some tactics, check out my chess tactics and chess puzzles videos, and my series How to Spot Chess Tactics, in which I show an effective way how to recognize tactical possibilities. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.